Hey everyone, so we're gonna take a look back on some more 90s memories, and today what we've got are some music CDs from the 90s, because what's more associated with the 90s than CDs? You had in the 80s, you had the cassette tapes, pre-1980s there were the vinyl records, and then of course today is everything's digital. But back in the 90s, it was all about the CDs. Couldn't get much better. It seemed like there would never be anything better than a CD. It had great quality. You could program songs. You could easily skip from track to track. It was the greatest thing ever. You had portable CD players to make it easier on the go. It was just fantastic. So anyway, over the years, I've gotten rid of a lot of my CDs because all of my music is just on, an iPod now, or I listen to everything through Spotify or whatever. But these are some of the CDs from the 90s I've managed to keep. Some of them were mine, some were my sister's, some were my parents. But either way, here is a collection of some classic music CDs from the 90s. Okay, first we have the Livin' La Vida Loca CD single by Ricky Martin. Classic late 90s song. Probably one of the most famous 90s songs. It's a huge pop hit in 1999. So that's pretty great. Next we've got Tragic Kingdom by No Doubt. Really the breakout album by them. They had been around for a while, but this had huge hits like Don't Speak and Just a Girl, Spiderwebs. It's a great album. Holds up really well today. Of course, No Doubt became huge after this. They had a lot of hits into the 2000s, and Gwen Stefani became a big solo artist, but this is kind of where it all began. 95, I think it was. Next, we've got good old Natalie Imbruglia with her Left of the Middle album. This had Torn, which was a huge hit, probably her biggest hit. I don't know if she was a one-hit wonder. I never really heard any other songs from her besides Torn, but it's a great song, classic mid-90s stuff. Then we go into some good old rap metal, late 90s era. We got some Kid Rock, Devil Without a Cause. This was mine. I thought I was super cool back in the day. I listened to, I had like a Kid Rock CD. I had some Limp Bizkit CDs. I was like, oh man, they swear. This is so cool. I can't believe I'm listening to this. Yes, as Ball With a Ball, Cowboy, a couple other late 90s classics. Kid Rock, not really something that holds up overly well today, but he managed to have a good post-90s career. Next, we've got a couple 90s Jewel CDs. We have Pieces of You by Jewel, which was pretty huge. That had Who Will Save Your Soul and You Were Meant for Me. Some good stuff. Then the album after that, which was called Spirit. And then we also have a couple singles. Here's the You Were Meant for Me CD single and the Who Will Save Your Soul single. Somehow I've wound up with two of them. But Jewel's pretty great. Her music holds up pretty well, at least her singles do. Look back on her with some real good memories. Next, one of the most classic 90s bands, Hanson, got their Middle of Nowhere album. This was actually mine when I was younger. They were one of those groups where I didn't really want to admit that I liked them, but come on, you couldn't help but just love it. How could you not love MMMBop and all their other catchy songs? But they're actually a really good band. They still have a lot of stuff today, and they're pretty talented guys. And we've also got the MMMBop CD single. So really, what's more 90s than that? Then we go into a 90s one-hit wonder with CD single by Duncan Sheik, Barely Breathing. Great song, definitely one of the better songs in the 90s, but I don't think he really ever did anything else after that, unfortunately. Here's something super 90s, My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion, the love theme from Titanic. So that's pretty great. Later 90s. Everybody loved this song. Then next we've got actually a famous 60s artist that had a late 90s song. Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys had a song called Your Imagination in about 98. It's a really good song. It's very Beach Boys-esque, but then next we've got getting to the boy band scene with NSYNC, No Strings Attached. This was actually very early 2000s. This album I think came out in 2000, but wanted to show it anyway because boy bands are so associated with the 90s, and NSYNC definitely had some good hits in the late 90s, so got Bye Bye Bye, It's Gonna Be Me, great stuff. And continuing with some boy bands, we've got 98 Degrees CD single for The Hardest Thing, And we also have Give Me Just One Night, Una Noche. This one was also early 2000s, I think, but again, 98 Degrees is definitely associated with the late 90s. They had a lot of good stuff. Their band, when I was in high school, boy bands were huge, and I hated them. But now looking back on it, I mean, they've got some great stuff. Just good, easy listening, fun, loving pop music. Then we've got the movie soundtrack for The Faculty. Late 90s, kind of a horror, sci-fi type movie. This was not a super popular movie, but I loved it. When I was in high school, I thought it was awesome. So I got the CD soundtrack. Another movie soundtrack for That Thing You Do. Great movie, came out in '96. It's supposed to be about a '60s band, but the movie was in the '90s, and it's a great movie. Excellent period piece, some great music in there. It's really good stuff. Then we got one of my favorite '90s bands, Weezer. This was their first album, the Blue Album. And then we have their other '90s album, Pinkerton, probably my favorite Weezer album. A lot of great songs. Both albums are awesome. Definitely some of the best '90s albums, absolutely. Then we've got Matchbox 20, Yourself or Someone Like You. A lot of big hits off this album. There's Push, 3 AM, Real World. So this is kind of, they became a really big band. This was kind of where it all started. And then we've got Americana by The Offspring. So they had some huge hits from here. Pretty Fly for a White Guy, probably their biggest. And they had The Kids Aren't Alright. It's another great '90s album. Then we've got a couple Goldfinger albums. I loved Goldfinger when I was in high school. I was big into that like kind of punk pop type scene, whatever you want to call it. And Goldfinger I thought was the greatest. They're pretty fantastic. Hang Up's their second album is awesome. It's probably one of my all-time favorite albums. So, pretty classic. And then speaking of punk pop, there was none really bigger than Blink-182, kind of exploded in the late 90s, and they remained big through the 2000s. And I love Blink-182. They're probably one of my top favorite bands of all time, still to this day. So this was Cheshire Cat. This was before they were really big, and then Dude Ranch was kind of where they started hitting it big. They had a couple hits off this album, and then Enema of the State, of course, was where they blew up. And that, All the Small Things, Adam's Song, What's My Age Again. This is a huge album. But definitely great '90s band and 2000s band. And next we've got the Wallflowers, Bringing Down the Horse. Some great mid-90s stuff. They had One Headlight, 6th Avenue Heartache off this album. And then we've got the CD single for Bittersweet Symphony by The Verve. Excellent '90s song. The song I've grown to appreciate even more as I've grown up. Like this is just a fantastic song. And then we've got Third Eye Blind with their self-titled album. This is another album I've really grown, or another band in general I've grown to appreciate more as I've gotten older. They had Semi-Charmed Life, which is probably one of the greatest '90s songs off this album, and but they had a lot of this whole album's fantastic, and they're a pretty great band. And then we got the Spice Girls, one of the biggest '90s bands, total classic. I used to have a huge crush on them. I'm pretty sure any kid from that time period did. This is the CD single for Say You'll Be There. And there's also the CD single for To Become One. I used to have the Wannabe CD single, which is awesome, and I don't know what happened to it, but still got these two, so those are pretty classic. And then here's the CD single for 1979 by the Smashing Pumpkins. They're another really great band that I've grown to appreciate as I've gotten older. And I have all of their stuff, but this is the only thing that I have left on CD from them. Definitely excellent song. Here's a couple Sarah McLachlan CD singles. First is Building a Mystery. And followed by Adia. She has a great voice. Good '90s artist. Alright, and that's really about it for now. So I hope that I brought back some memories. We had some boy bands in there, some rock bands, some punk pop type bands, some rap metal, some solo female artists, female groups, a little bit of everything. So hope everybody enjoyed it.